In the chill of a forgotten night, a strange figure drifted through the skeletal remains of an abandoned manor that loomed on the edge of the village. Locals whispered about the place, saying that it wasn't just haunted but cursed. No one who entered came out the same way at all. They spoke of a restless ghost within its walls, one bound by sorrow and rage, a soul caught between worlds. The ghost, known only as the Whisperer, was said to be the spirit of a woman who had perished under mysterious circumstances centuries ago. Once a healer, she had been betrayed by those she trusted, accused of dark magic, and ultimately met a brutal end. Her final cries were rumored to echo through the rooms, pleading for anyone to remember her side of the story. But no one did. A new rumor began to spread among the townsfolk. The Whisperer had started calling out specific names. Villagers swore that in the dead of night, they could hear their own names echo from the manor's shadowy corridors. And if you were unlucky enough to hear it, it meant that you were next. Next for what? No one dared find out. One moonless night, a young traveler, unaware of the legend, found shelter in the manor, exhausted and unfamiliar with the ghost stories that kept villagers at bay. He paid no mind to the creaks and groans of the old structure. But then, just as he began to drift asleep, a chill swept over him. A faint whisper echoed in his ear, faint yet unmistakable. Asterisk, do you remember? Asterisk, the question repeated, rising in volume and desperation, filling the silence with a haunting plea that chilled him to his bones. He scrambled to his feet, but the doors slammed shut, trapping him in the ghost's relentless, spectral grip. As dawn broke, the villagers found his belongings scattered outside, but the traveler was gone. In the manor's dusty mirror, an inscription seemed to have appeared overnight, scrawled in a trembling hand. Asterisk, until you remember. I remain. Asterisk, and to this day. They say, if you stand close enough to the manor on a still night, you'll hear her voice. Months after the traveler's disappearance, the manor drew more attention, not only from curious villagers but from a historian named Alara who had arrived in town to research the ancient families of the area. She'd heard whispers of the manor's haunting and the Whisperer, but rather than fearing it, she found herself captivated. Alara's curiosity was piqued when she uncovered an obscure journal buried in the village archives. It belonged to the village healer from centuries past, a woman named Lyra, name long forgotten, her legacy erased and condemned. The journal pages were weathered and torn, but one entry was almost perfectly preserved, bearing a cryptic warning in a delicate, spiraling script. Asterisk, only when truth breaks free shall my spirit find peace. Only one can see. Asterisk, Alara couldn't shake the sense that Lyra's final message was meant for her. She studied the journal intently and learned of the healer's final days, her bravery, her knowledge of ancient rites, and the betrayal she'd suffered at the hands of powerful figures in the village. The more Alara read, the more she felt a strange connection to the ghostly whispers that had haunted the manor for centuries. She realized Lyra might have been searching for someone who could understand her plight and perhaps release her spirit. Determined to help, Alara returned to the manor that evening, braving the biting wind and the aura of dread that had seeped into its decaying walls. Inside, she lit a single candle and began to recite a passage from Lyra's journal, hoping the words might reach her restless spirit. The room chilled immediately, and Alara could feel the air grow heavy, as if the manor itself held its breath. And then, from the darkness, a shadow began to take form, a woman with hollow eyes and a gaze that seemed to pierce into Alara's soul. Are you the one? The ghost whispered, her voice a blend of hope and sorrow. Alara, trembling but resolute, nodded. I am here to help you find peace. The Whisperer's eyes flickered, almost alive with a strange light. She raised a hand, and before Alara could react, the ghost reached out and pressed her icy fingers to Alara's forehead. A vision burst into Alara's mind, glimpses of Lyra's life, her persecution, the betrayal by someone close, a dark ritual, and an object buried beneath the manor's foundations. An object cursed to hold her spirit captive. But then, the vision fractured, revealing something darker, another spirit, lurking. An unseen presence binding Lyra's ghost to the manor, refusing to let her leave. Alara stumbled back, gasping. She realized that Lyra wasn't just trapped by unfinished business, there was something else here. Something far more sinister. Something that had kept Lyra imprisoned for its own reasons. "Free me." "But beware the shadow within," Lyra whispered, fading into the darkness. As Alara steadied herself, a faint echo of laughter filled the room, low and mocking. She wasn't alone in the manor. Something else waited, watching. An ancient malevolent force that would stop at nothing to keep its secrets buried, with only fragments of the mystery uncovered. Alara knew she had to return to dig deeper if she dared. Alara left the manor that night, her mind racing with what she'd uncovered. Lyra's spirit wasn't just haunting the place she was trapped, bound by something dark and malicious that lurked in the shadows. A malevolent force that seemed woven into the very stones of the manor. Back in the safety of her rented room at the inn, Alara pored over Lyra's journal, searching for any clues about the ritual she had seen in her vision. She noticed a faint outline pressed into the back cover, like a hidden seal that had been worn down over the centuries. Peeling back the fabric, she discovered a slip of parchment concealed within. On it was a hastily scrawled note. Asterisk, the shadow was summoned to bind me. It remains by the will of he who betrayed me. To break it, blood must be spilled where mine was lost. Asterisk, Alara's heart pounded as she reread the words. This shadow wasn't just a presence, it was a curse placed upon Lyra by someone close to her. Someone who deliberately imprisoned her spirit for eternity. The only way to free her was to return to the spot where she had been murdered, and complete a ritual to break the spell, but that would mean facing the shadow itself. Despite the danger, Alara was determined to uncover the truth. She spent the next day preparing, gathering herbs and symbols she'd read about in Lyra's journal that might protect her from the spirit's malevolent grip, armed with nothing more than her resolve and the faint hope that Lyra's spirit would guide her. Alara returned to the manor at midnight, moving through the darkness to where she believed Lyra had taken her last breath, the decaying remnants of the cellar. As she descended into the damp, claustrophobic space, a freezing gust of wind whipped past her, extinguishing her candle. Shadows pulled around her, twisting and coiling like living things. And then, she felt it. A presence, seething with anger and something that felt disturbingly like recognition. A voice slithered through the darkness, thick with malice. Asterisk, you think you can break what was forged in blood and vengeance. She is mine. And so are you. Asterisk, Alara clutched her amulet and began the incantation from Lyra's journal. Her voice steady but trembling. As she spoke, a figure materialized before her, spectral yet unmistakably human, a man with cold, calculating eyes, dressed in the garb of an old cleric. She recognized him from her vision, Lyra's betrayer, the one who had called forth the shadow to trap her spirit. "Stop," he hissed, stepping closer. "You meddle in affairs beyond your understanding. Her spirit is bound for a reason. Release her, and you will invite something far worse." Alara didn't waver, repeating the incantation louder. The shadow recoiled, writhing and twisting as the words took effect, and the room began to shake. Then, from behind the ghostly figure, Lyra's spirit appeared, her form flickering but resolute. "Finish it, Alara," she urged. "He cannot harm you if you complete the ritual." Summoning all her courage, Alara stepped forward, but as she did, the cleric's eyes burned with fury, and the shadow lunged toward her, enveloping her in a cold so intense it felt like drowning. In those final, desperate moments, Alara felt Lyra's hand grasp hers, pulling her back from the void. As their fingers touched, a blinding light erupted, and the shadow's grip faltered, releasing her. Together, they completed the ritual, shattering the curse. The cleric's spirit screamed, dissolving into smoke. His final words barely a whisper. Asterisk, you have only begun to understand the darkness you have unleashed. Asterisk, when Alara finally stumbled out of the cellar, she felt Lyra's presence fade. A sense of peace settling over the manor for the first time in centuries. But as she turned to leave, she felt an unsettling twinge, as if a piece of the darkness had followed her. In the days that followed, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, her own shadow seeming darker, heavier. Whispers filled her dreams, fragments of the cleric's curse echoing in her mind. And somewhere, back in the depths of the cellar, a faint shadow reformed, waiting, hungry to reclaim what it had lost. Alara was haunted by the events at the manor, plagued by whispers and shadows that seemed to follow her even after she left. Desperate to end the darkness once and for all, she sought the wisdom of an elderly mystic named Miriam, known in the region for her knowledge of ancient rites and protections. Miriam listened closely as Alara recounted everything Lyra's spirit, the vengeful cleric, and the shadow that seemed to cling to her even now. The mystic nodded solemnly, recognizing the danger of a curse that refused to die. The shadow remains because it is tied not only to Lyra's death but to the guilt and hatred within the cleric's spirit. He was bound by his own darkness, which is why it lingers even now, Miriam explained. But there is a way to sever it permanently. You must go back one last time and perform a rite of absolution for both the cleric and yourself. It was a daunting task, but Alara knew it was her only hope. With Miriam's guidance, she prepared a mixture of purifying herbs, oils, and a charm made of silver and iron, designed to repel even the deepest of curses. Armed with these, she returned to the manor under the light of a full moon, feeling an unusual sense of calm as she crossed the threshold. She could feel Lyra's spirit nearby, watching over her. Down in the cellar, the air grew cold once again, but this time Alara felt ready. She placed the charm in the center of the room, lighting the herbs and chanting the rite of absolution in a steady, determined voice. The shadows thickened, and once more, the cleric's ghost appeared, his form twisted with rage. But Alara didn't stop. She continued, her voice unwavering. As the incantation filled the room, something miraculous happened. The shadow began to dissolve, losing its power. The cleric's spirit, bound for so long by his own hatred, began to soften, his form growing lighter and less distinct. For the first time, his eyes held something besides malice, a flicker of regret. Why? Why did you come back? He asked, his voice faint, almost human. To release us both, Alara replied. Even you deserve peace. With that, she finished the rite, and a warm light filled the cellar, banishing the last of the darkness. The cleric's spirit faded, his form finally breaking free, and with him, the shadow that had haunted the manor for centuries. When Alara emerged from the cellar, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. The manor, once cloaked in a perpetual chill, now seemed peaceful, as if the centuries-old curse had finally lifted. And standing in the doorway was Lyra's spirit, no longer bound by sorrow but radiating a quiet joy. Thank you, Alara, Lyra whispered, her voice soft and free. You have given us both the peace we sought. With a final, grateful smile, Lyra's spirit drifted into the night, disappearing into the stars. Alara watched until the last shimmer of her light was gone, feeling a warmth fill her heart. Back in the village, Alara felt her shadow was just that, a simple shadow, no longer weighted with lingering darkness. And when she finally left the village, she carried with her not only the stories of the past but a sense of healing and hope. The manor, once a place of fear, became a symbol of redemption, a place where old curses were broken and peace was restored.